Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I want to go back to, I want to just start, you've been obviously involved in this case since the 30th of November 2021, correct?
Correct.
And since that time, you have collected and looked at an abundance of evidence related to the Crumbleys, the shooter, the shooting, everything, correct?
Correct.
And when you were testifying earlier, you testified that at a previous hearing, you had testified about the parents when they first went into Oxford High School, correct?
Correct.
And on that day, you had reviewed many, many materials prior to coming to court.
Correct.
And that hearing was a preliminary examination, which is a hearing that's before a trial, correct?
Correct.
And at that hearing, you did the best job you could in terms of explaining, answering questions.
Correct.
You were truthful on that day.
Absolutely.
As you're being today.
Yes.
And we can agree that you made a mistake about Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley arriving in the vehicle together at the school.
Because of the video, how it jumped, yes.
Okay, an honest mistake.
Correct.
And it's fair to say that when you didn't have more information, you made an assumption that they had been in the same vehicle together, correct?
Correct. I didn't know how many cars they had at the time.
You see them walk into the school together, but you couldn't see before that.
Correct.
And that's why you testified, honestly, you thought they had arrived together, but it was incorrect.
Correct.
And so you would agree with me that the more information you have about any topic and the less guessing, the more accurate the information will be that you give on this witness stand, correct?
I wasn't guessing before. I didn't know how many cars they had. I just saw them appear in front of the car.
Right, so when you testified and said they arrived in the same car, that was incorrect.
Correct.
And I'm saying that had you had more information about seeing the vehicles pull up or seeing each one get out of separate cars, your testimony would have been different, correct?
It would have been included in the video, correct.
And so my point is you do the best job you can with the information you have.
Yes, ma'am.
But you're certainly not someone who can go back in time and see and know every detail of every single thing that's happened, correct?
Not every single thing. You could put together a good timeline with all the information that you gather, yes.
And it's fair to say for this jury, you have put together as detailed of a timeline as you can about all of the events before November 30th through 11/30th and beyond 11/30th, correct?
That's correct.
And when you are doing that, you are taking data from cell phones and other investigators, from surveillance, from all these different materials that are a part of the investigation in this case.
Correct.
And it's possible that at times when you answer a question, you may not be accurate, but you're not sitting here intentionally trying to lie, correct?
It's absolutely correct.
Okay. I'm going to go back through the investigation that you did. It's fair to say, and I think you testified, you started obviously on November 30th of 2021, correct?
When the investigation started?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And can you give the jury an idea of how much time it takes to get certain evidence or kind of what it looked like going forward from 11/30 when you received various pieces of information? So on 11/30th, let's talk about what you saw that day. You obviously saw the surveillance camera from the school, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, on that day, did you have the surveillance camera from Jennifer's office?
That came afterwards.
Okay, that came down the road.
Yes.
At that time, did you have the text messages between Jennifer Crumbley and James Crumbley?
That came out, that would have been afterwards.
Okay, when did that come?
It would have been within a week, 2 weeks of that. We would have had to, like I explained, the process of getting the data from a phone. Depending on how much data there is, it could take a while, and then to sift through all of it. So it could be anywhere from a couple days to a couple weeks to get everything that you're looking for.
And in terms of the investigation, there were materials you had on the 30th, obviously.
Correct.
There were materials you received in the days following the 30th, correct?
Correct.
And there were some materials that law enforcement didn't have for weeks and months that became a part of this investigation. Is that a fair statement?
That's correct.
And as more and more information became available, you would turn it over to the prosecutor's office?
Correct.
And then you would assume that they would turn the evidence over to the defense for it to be used in court by all parties and the judge.
Yeah, I knew my job. I don't know what they're, they have to give that up. Yes, I understand that.
Okay, so at the time on the 30th, it's fair to say all of the evidence that you have in this investigation, I'm sorry, not on the 30th. The 30th was the day of the shooting, and Mrs. Crumbley was arrested overnight between December 3rd and December 4th, correct?
Correct.
And it would be fair to say that between November 30th and December 3rd, your office and team and all law enforcement were working as hard as they could to collect information and collect evidence, correct?
Correct.
While you were working as fast as you could, there were a number of materials that you did not see until after Jennifer Crumbley was arrested.
Well, just because of the sheer volume of information that we were pulling together at the time, yeah, I mean, it took a while to go through it.
And when you're looking at all of the information about Jennifer Crumbley in this investigation, much of what you're doing is looking back in time in hindsight.
In hindsight, we're trying to put a story together, a series of events or a digital footprint of what had happened. We're trying to put that together. And
as you're trying to put that together, you're doing the best you can to make the timeline and the evidence make sense, correct?
Correct.
But in terms of what happened in the months before the shooting, the day of the shooting, and the days after the shooting, you obviously were not with the Crumbleys 24/7, correct?
No, I was not. I didn't know them before this.
And it's impossible to have, there isn't any way to have a videotape, for example, of all those months, that shooting day and the days following, correct?
Correct.
So you take bits of information and try to put it together the best you can to make sense of it.
Are you referring to this investigation or throughout life?
Well, both. I mean, I guess we do that in both, right?
I guess in my life, if my son had hallucinations, I would have taken serious pause with that.
All right, let's stop for 1 second. When you say hallucinations, you're saying that you would take serious pause, but in reality, you did not know the shooter before this shooting, correct?
No, I did not.
You do not have awareness if he was really having hallucinations, correct?
I would have taken some time to look into it.
You're aware that there's this text thread, and we're going to get into it later, where he's telling his parents he's seeing things, correct?
Correct.
But you weren't a part of any of the conversations or a part of that household in those days around that text message conversation, correct?
No, I was not.
You're
You said
not.
you didn't know them before this.
Okay, you're not aware of what Jennifer and James and their son had been talking about in person before and after those text messages.
Well, from the text message, I know the son on a couple of occasions asked or spoke with his friend about seeing a doctor or wanted to go see his doctor, tell his parents he was going to, tell his parents that he wanted to go see a doctor.
And while there are texts between the shooter and his friend, you have no evidence that Mrs. Crumbley has ever seen those texts, correct?
That she has read them?
Right.
No, I do not.
You have, so there's text that the shooter sent to his friend, and you have no way to know whether Jennifer Crumbley ever saw those text messages, correct?
Other than his own words say, I'm going to tell my parents tomorrow that I want to go see a doctor.
That telling his friend, I want to go see a doctor, and I'm going to tell my parents tomorrow, you don't know if he really wanted to go see a doctor or was going to tell his parents, correct?
I understand that's counsel's argument, but it's improper questions. I already answered the question.
Okay, you don't know whether Mrs. Crumbley saw the text between her son and his friend.
No, I do not, ma'am.
And I'm also making the point, Your Honor, and the question is, you also don't know if it's true that he really planned to tell his parents anything. He has a text to a friend saying that, but you don't know whether that's true or not, correct?
Other than him saying on a couple occasions, no, I don't.
Okay, and when you say a couple of occasions, there's text messages on certain days that that you testified about, but there's many, many, many other days, we can agree, that you have not testified about, correct?
In reference to what?
In reference to what he said to his friend, or in reference to what he said to the Crumbleys.
I mean, did he have are you asking, did he have conversations with them? I don't understand the question, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, my question is, you've given us bits of information about certain days, about March 9th, about a date in April, about a date in November, correct?
Correct.
Okay, there's a lot of other dates that you did not give us information about what exactly was texted to and from Ethan Crumbley and Mrs. Crumbley, correct?
Correct, there wasn't much texting between them.
Okay, you also, there's certain messages that you testified about between the shooter and his friend.
Correct.
There's also a lot of other text messages between them that you have not talked about.
Well, because the stuff that was talked about was not allowed to be talked about. He talked about.
Your Honor,
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I think it's important, Judge.
Yeah.
Counsel can't ask questions about evidence that she sought to exclude.
Okay.
telling this jury that I sought to exclude evidence that was irrelevant is very unfair, and that is improper.
Okay, well, there's a lot of improper things here. No one's hiding any evidence from the jury, okay? So I don't want any implication that this witness is hiding what evidence from someone. So, yeah.
Thank you, Judge.
So don't ask about the messages if you don't want to know. So.
Okay. When you're talking about the text messages, let's back up and do this differently. You went through text messages between the shooter and his friend to find evidence to support that the shooter was having issues, correct?
To build, we went through the text message to try to get an idea of who he was and what he was going through and what he had talked about with his friends.
And when you saw text messages like you testified about involving seeing things and dishes flying and demons and things along those lines, you gathered those, and that was the evidence that you've presented to this jury to support your case, correct?
Well, because those were things of importance that he was hallucinating and seeing stuff flying off the shelves. And there's no other evidence or that we could find on the phones or communication between them to say that that problem was remedied or that a phone call was made to the shooter to what's going on or how can I help you, son, or anything like that. None of that was found. So it was important that that was what he was struggling with.
Okay, you're guessing that is what he's struggling with. You're doing the best you can, but you're getting pieces of information out of text messages, and really you don't know these people or what was going on, other than what you see in these texts.
He agrees with that. He didn't know any of them before this. Yeah.
Okay, I apologize. Well, I keep ending up in a situation where we're trailing off and repeating, and I would just ask that.
Yeah, he
stop.
doesn't know them.
When Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley were at their home and law enforcement came to their house, it's accurate that the cell phones from the parents were taken by law enforcement.
The first time they came to the home?
Not necessarily the first time. I'm asking, police took the cell phones that Jennifer and James Crumbley used. Police took those phones, correct?
Yes, they did.
Okay. And when police took those phones, Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley obviously went and bought burner phones or track phones.
Correct.
And you've testified that you can see that Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley, or at least Mrs. Crumbley, attempted to get into some accounts that required two-factor authentication.
That's correct.
Can you please explain very quickly what two-factor authentication means for the jury?
It's so someone can't get into your account with just simply your password. When you open up an email account or you open up a Facebook account, and it tells you, put your phone number in here. So when you try logging in from a phone or a device that Facebook doesn't recognize, it'll send a text message to the number that you said send a text message to. So then you enter that code into the app as you're trying to log into it. So it's two-factor authentication, your password, and then a text message from the provider.
And so for things like sometimes bank accounts or portals to get into doctors, things along those lines, sometimes two-factor authentication is required where you would need your original phone, correct?
Correct.
Or at least your phone number to be able to gain access to your own accounts.
That's correct.
There are accounts that will block you out if you're using a device it's not used to seeing when you log in.
If the two-factor authentication is set up?
Yes.
Correct.
And so in this case, you could see that Mrs. Crumbley attempted to do some two-factor authentication and was unable to do so, correct?
I don't know what she was unable to do. So I know there's a text message that was received from Instagram with a two-factor. I don't know what happened with after that.
Okay, so after buying the track phones, the burner phones, it's fair to say that Mrs. Crumbley and Mr. Crumbley went to their phone carrier and purchased new phones that have their regular phone numbers on them, correct?
Was that after the burner phones, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yes, they did.
Okay, so when we're talking about the Crumbleys having 6 cell phones between them, the 6 cell phones include their original phones that were given to police, correct?
That's correct.
It includes these 2 track phones that have different phone numbers where you can't do the two-factor authentication, correct?
That's correct.
And it includes the 2 phones that were purchased after that so that they could have their phone numbers back on devices and then access accounts.
That's correct.
And from the phones, when you seize them, there is evidence that Jennifer Crumbley attempted to deactivate and delete a number of social media applications, correct?
There was talk about it in text messages. You need to delete this account or whatever. I don't know. Do you have something in particular that you're a certain account that you're asking?
There are text messages within the exhibits the prosecution has admitted, and I can put them up, that show Mrs. Crumbley and Mr. Crumbley were trying to deactivate Facebook accounts and Instagram, correct?
I know there were text messages people texting them telling them to do that, yes.
Okay, and part of the reason people in those text messages were telling them to do that is because after the shooting, there were threats and there were a lot of threats against Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley.
Judge, respectfully, I don't believe this officer can testify as to the reason why people said that. He can testify that there was attempts to delete and things were deleted, but the reason for the motivation, he can't testify.
Well, he can't testify about the motivation, but did you see anything? Did you see threatening messages to them?
I don't recall seeing any no, I don't.
Okay. Do you recall that when in the text messages that Jennifer Crumbley sent out, she told Ms. Brian Maloche, she told Kira Pennick, she told multiple people that she was being threatened?
Are you telling me that? Or
I'm
me?
asking you.
I don't recall. If you have something to show me, I don't recall that off the top of my head.
Okay. Which one is the best one? No, David. Did you tell Karen or Andrew? Yeah, we're further down Kara's message. The safety and stuff. The 130. Well, above Kira first. Okay, this is for yours. Okay. Okay, so in okay. I'm going to put on the screen exhibit number 130, which was admitted in your prior testimony. Is it?
Right.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Now, within the text message thread between Jennifer Crumbley and Kira Pennick, this is a screenshot that was in that text thread, correct?
This from Kira Pennick's, the screenshot of hers? Is that what this is?
This is in exhibit 130 that's been admitted. These are screenshots with Kira Pennick. And I'm asking you, this is a screenshot showing threats to Jennifer Crumbley that Jennifer Crumbley showed to Kira Pennick.
I don't know. I don't remember ever seeing. I don't know where it says Kira Pennick in the title of the image, but I don't know.
Okay.
Is there a copy of the exhibit that you could? Did you say this is in 130?
Your Honor, this is in 130, and I apologize. I am going to have to go in detail through each exhibit. I did not want to do that, but it's very clear I'm going to have to. So I'm going to the top of this. This is a 28-page exhibit. Okay.
Well,
this was
he's having the same challenge you are, is that there's so much paper that
right.
He can't say if there's a hard copy of the exhibit that could help him, right? Is there? Do you have?
May I approach?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
okay.
Okay. So this was admitted. These were admitted screenshots through your testimony. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do. I see the.
Okay.
Does that document refresh your recollection?
Well, this part, the word says met with his counselor. Yeah, that part, I remember that.
Okay. And in the thread, we see what you testified about in terms of Jennifer Crumbley sending over a copy of the math assignment.
Correct. I see that. Yes.
Okay. We see the testimony you gave about Ethan being upset, having lost his friend and going away, and his dog.
Correct.
Okay. Going further down, this is before the shooting started. Okay, so I'm on page 4 of that exhibit, going into page 5. This is all before the shooting, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and in this part, they're talking, Jennifer has told Kira Pennick, as you testified, about the math worksheet.
Yes,
She's told Kira Pennick about I had to go to the counselor's office to have a meeting with them.
correct.
Kira's talking about what horse Ethan could possibly be with that day that might make him feel better.
Correct.
And as the text thread goes down further, Kira and Jennifer, it's fair to say, remained in contact through the time of the shooting and after the shooting.
Correct.
Okay? And on November 30th, Kira Pennick is asking, she says, I heard there was a shooting at Oxford High School. Is Ethan okay? Correct?
Correct.
Okay? Saying, if you need anything, let me know.
Correct.
And after the time of the shooting at 4:42, Jennifer Crumbley is texting with Kira Pennick again,
Correct.
talking about how she needs to sell her horses.
Correct.
This is when she knows that the shooting has happened and she's, well, she says, my head is spinning right now, correct?
That's what, yes, correct.
Okay? She's talking to Kira Pennick about selling the house back and forth.
Correct.
Okay, and Kira is talking about how she'll take care of the horses for Jennifer.
Correct.
Okay, and Jennifer says, I don't have my cell phone right now. She tells her I'm on this track phone
Correct.
because the police have her real phone.
Correct.
Okay, and then Kira tells her about how there's stuff on Facebook. People are figuring out what's going on, correct?
Correct.
And Jennifer indicates, I'm off Facebook, I'm still in shock.
Correct.
Okay? And Kira offers to send Jennifer, can you receive pictures? I'll screenshot it, correct?
Yes.
And then Kira goes on to send Jennifer screenshots of something a mutual friend posted that was about the shooting, correct?
That's correct.
And their discussions are about, it says right in the exhibit, I cannot believe people on Facebook. I'm so sorry you're having to deal with this stuff, correct?
Correct.
Okay. She asks a question about the medication, and Jennifer indicates we're at a hotel in Lapeer and that the news is live at her house, correct?
Correct.
Kira's response, at least in the text messages, is please stay safe, correct?
Correct.
And Jennifer sends her over what appears to be a screenshot from a social media app, maybe Facebook, or I'm not exactly sure, but you can see that Jennifer sent a screenshot where she has received nasty messages to her.
So I'm just going to object to the form of the question. Mr. Wagrowski can certainly read all of this, but calling it a threat or nasty, that's not for him to answer. That's for the jury to determine.
Well, yeah, they can characterize it,
They can read it.
but definitely they're not nice.
Okay, can you please tell the jury what these messages say? Larry Barton.
I'm sorry, you want to read them? What
Sure.
it says on it? It says rotten jail next to him.
Okay, Brandon Hegwood.
What a shame on you.
Kaylee Camacho.
Fuck your ugly ass kid, I hope.
Adam Tank.
What a fucking coward, Ethan.
Jennifer Crumbley texts to Kira, I can't go home.
Correct.
And Kira texts back that she's concerned for Jennifer's, when she says you guys, I'm concerned for you guys, and is expressing concern, correct?
That, yes, to stay away from the horses. Correct, yes.
Okay. She also says she's worried about your horses or hurting you while you're here, correct?
Correct.
Okay. It's fair to say that Jennifer and James are afraid of the public's reaction to what their son did.
Again, Judge, form of the question.
I don't understand it.
Well, let me back up. I'm sorry, I can rephrase, if that's okay. Okay, so we know the news has been around the Crumbley's home.
Correct.
Okay, so following the shooting, there was media all over their street, correct?
I wasn't there. I don't know. I wasn't there. I can't tell you if there's media there or not.
Okay, would it surprise you if there was?
It wouldn't surprise me, no.
Okay, there were some nasty messages coming into Mrs. Crumbley.
From the street, are you referring, yes, I'm sorry, yes.
Okay, and Jennifer is saying she doesn't want to put anyone else at risk, and that specifically is on page 15 of the exhibit you're looking at.
Correct.
Kira is telling her about, or is commenting people are ridiculous, also talking about buying horses, other random comments in there. Is that a fair statement? There's some miscellaneous, I don't know.
She also said, be honest about things too.
Yep, Kira's saying to her, the best thing you can do is be honest about things.
Correct.
Okay, Jennifer's not saying, I don't plan to be honest, right?
Didn't respond with that, no.
Okay, Jennifer's not saying, I've got a big plan to lie, help me put this together.
It's not in here, no.
Okay, we have no evidence to suggest that Jennifer's telling Kira to lie about anything for her.
Correct.
Okay, so when Kira's saying be honest, she's saying be honest, but you have no reason to believe that Jennifer's attempting to be dishonest at this point, based on that message.
At this point, no.
Yeah.
But they
And
were
then-
taken into custody for a couple days after they were told to turn themselves in.
I'm sorry?
They were taken into custody a couple days after they were supposed to be taken into custody.
Okay, we're gonna get there. We'll get there. Jennifer Crumbley is representing that she's trying to work out lawyer fees, figuring out about being questioned, if she's gonna be brought in, amounts she can pay, things like that, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and Jennifer is telling her, I'm bawling right now, my son ruined so many lives today.
That's correct.
And he did ruin so many lives that day.
Yes, he did.
And Kira is writing back to her. She wishes she could help more. She's also in shock, correct?
Objection again, form of question, Judge.
Well, he doesn't know if she's in shock. She texts that.
Okay, I'm sorry. She texted, I am still in shock too.
That's what she texted, correct.
And Kira encourages Jennifer, take it one day at a time, and again, just be honest about everything. It should help you through this.
Correct.
And offers to take care of the boys, which we would guess is her horses.
The two horses at her farm, correct.
Jennifer is thanking her for not judging her, unlike the whole world, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, meaning that we can assume Jennifer feels the whole world is judging her.
Again, objection to the form of the question.
Yeah, he doesn't know. He knows what the text says. He doesn't know how she feels, but that's what she said.
Okay, that's what the text says.
That's what the text says, correct.
Kira says that she's not going to essentially judge Jennifer. It doesn't remotely make her think it's their fault, correct?
That's what Kira texted, yes, correct.
And then Kira says, it sounds like Ethan was a troubled kid.
Correct.
It's unfortunate this happened.
That's correct.
Okay. And Jennifer is texting her back, I wish we had some warnings. Something. That's what Jennifer texted back to her, correct?
Yeah, the hallucinations, back to that, could have been warnings for seeing demons.
Okay. And again, you didn't know these people, you don't know the context, you don't know what they discussed. We've already covered that earlier in your testimony, right?
I do not know them before this prior.
Okay. So you've talked about the hallucinations many times. The jury gets it. There's a text about hallucinations. We all agree, those are there, okay? To you, those would have been alarming. You would have acted differently based on getting that text.
Absolutely, I would have.
Okay. Jennifer Crumbley is texting her friend Kira in this text thread. That's what we're going over right now.
Okay.
And her texts are saying, I wish we had warnings.
Correct?
Correct, that's what she put, yes.
Okay. And Jennifer Crumbley wrote, he's a good kid. They made a terrible decision. And there may be typos, but it says, he's a good kid. They made a terrible decision, correct?
That's what she typed, yes.
Okay. Kira responds back, there probably were warnings, but nobody saw them. Hindsight is always 20/20. I don't care if you agree with it or not. That's what Kira says. Hindsight is always 20/20, correct?
That's what's typed there, yes.
Then Kira goes on and says, people at the barn are concerned. I'm sorry, I'll go slower, okay? A lot of people have found out Ethan's all over Facebook. That's the next thing she says, correct?
Correct.
And then she goes on to say, people at the barn are concerned.
Correct.
She tells Jennifer, I think it would be best if you didn't go out to the barn, or if you do, you should be escorted by police, correct?
Correct.
When someone's escorted by police, that's usually for safety reasons, correct?
Possibly, yes.
Jennifer says, seriously, those horses are the only thing good in my life right now. And this is after the shooting, correct?
Correct.
And Kira responds, I understand that, but we all need to be careful.
Correct.
So it's fair to say there was a concern about safety regarding Jennifer after the shooting, and also other people around her were concerned for their own safety.
Correct.
And it's also fair to say, and if you don't know, please just let me know if you don't know, a lot of people in this state hated Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley when they heard about this shooting.
Judge, he can't possibly answer that question.
Yeah, I don't know how he can testify to that.
Okay.
There was widespread attention.
There was widespread attention.
Yes, there was, that, of course.
And there were many news articles.
Correct, yes.
And people on anything like this are naturally upset to see a school shooting.
Absolutely.
And people naturally are angry to hear that children have died.
Absolutely.
And this was the kind of event that sparked a lot of emotion in a lot of ways.
That's fair to say.
That's fair to say for you personally.
Absolutely.
You would imagine that for other people, they were personally affected by this, very emotional.
Yes.
And it's fair to say that this kind of a tragedy it was just horrific. We can agree it was horrific.
The shooting, yes, it was, absolutely.
Jennifer tells Kira to call her on Facebook. She's on a track phone, needs to figure some things out, correct?
Correct.
If they did have a phone call, you're not aware of it. Well, and I'll slow down. the next message says, sorry, I missed your call from Kira, correct?
Correct.
But we don't know what happened in between the text about calling at 11:23 and the text the following day at 2:34. We don't know if there ended up being conversations or not. Is that a fair statement?
Correct.
You can't tell from this
Not
thread.
from this, correct.
So they're going back and forth, talking more and more about letting her know later today, things like that. There's talking horses in between all of this. Is that a fair statement?
Correct.
And on the bottom of page 22, Kira indicates, I don't want people to follow you or hurt you.
Correct.
And Jennifer says, we are out of the area for a few days in a safe place until we have a better grasp on everything, correct?
That's correct.
She doesn't say we are trying to get out of state, we're trying to get out of the country. She doesn't say anything like that, correct?
Not in this chat thread.
Okay. In this, she says, we're trying to be in a safe place,
Correct.
which would indicate safety is, of course, a concern to the Crumbley parents.
By saying they're in a safe place, yes, I would say that.
Kira says, I'm glad you're safe. I care about you guys, correct?
Correct.
She assures her she'll take care of the horses. They'll talk about buying them, figuring out somebody to buy them, correct?
That's correct.
A few more text messages back and forth about meeting before then. And then on page 24 of that exhibit, Jennifer says, what's your number? I want to call and set up a safe place to meet, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, she mentions that her messenger is probably being monitored,
She does say that, yes.
okay? And she's talking about she needs to get stuff, discuss the horses, correct?
That's correct.
And let's see, they're going through more about whether cash or checks are best.
What page is that?
It's
I see that,
on
yes, I'm sorry.
25.
Yes.
Okay, and you're aware that after the night of the shooting, the Crumbleys went and stayed in a local hotel.
Yeah, correct. They went to a hotel, yes.
Okay, and the next day they went to a different hotel.
Correct.
Okay, which was also, I mean, maybe an hour from here, a local hotel, not out of state, not out of the country, right?
Within an hour, yes.
Okay, and so in the days following the shooting, the Crumbleys did not return to their home in Oxford.
They did not know.
And as far as you know, since the day of the shooting, the Crumbleys have never returned to their home in Oxford.
No, they've never been back.
Let me just see if there's anything else. I'm sorry. Okay, and then the rest of this is talking about possible charges being announced, and things. Jennifer is saying she's anticipating there may be charges announced, criminal charges.
Yes, at the night before, I believe. On page 26, yes.
After the shooting.
Yes.
And when she's talking about charges, she's trying to figure out if they're charges, well, I'm sorry, scratch that. She's talking about charges against herself, correct?
I'm not entirely certain if she's, it doesn't say whether she's referring to herself or somebody else.
Okay, so she's waiting to basically just figure out what's going on.
Because
is what-
again, counsel can't narrate what she thinks her client was thinking. She can have him read the text message. I admitted it into evidence. They can have it all.
Yeah, okay, so there's a text.
Okay,
Maybe there, yeah.
so the text says, Jennifer Crumbley wrote, I'm not sure what's happening.
Yes, I'm sorry, yes.
Okay. From the text message thread that the prosecution introduced between Jennifer Crumbley and Brian Maloche, we also can conclude, and if you can't, let me know, that Jennifer Crumbley was trying to deactivate and delete social media accounts.
I believe she was, yes, I believe they discussed that, yes.
And Jennifer Crumbley is asking Brian Maloche things about, can you still see James's Facebook? Can you see my Facebook? Questions like that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. James and Jennifer Crumbley Jennifer Crumbley in her text messages is very clearly making it obvious. She is telling Brian that she is shutting things down. Like that.
I don't remember the language that she used. I know they talked about it. I don't remember if she used the phrase shutting things down.
If a person has a Facebook account that they deactivate, okay, I'm gonna go even slower. When someone has a Facebook account, other people in the world have the ability to see that account, correct?
If it's public or your friends or whatever other security settings, well, yes.
However you have it set up,
Yes.
you allow who can see the account and who can't, correct?
That's correct.
If you do have an account and you don't want the world to see it, if you deactivate the account doesn't appear when people look for you on Facebook, correct?
That's correct.
So if the Facebook account is deactivated, people cannot send you messages through Facebook, correct?
That's correct.
And they can't send you messages through Facebook Messenger.
I'm not entirely certain if you'd have to deactivate Messenger as well. I don't know, because they are two separate platforms. It's under one company, Meta, Facebook, but I don't know if you have to deactivate both of them.
So with Messenger, if Jennifer Crumbley deactivated Messenger, we can agree that people wouldn't be able to send her messages.
Correct.
And in general, if a person is trying to avoid having people find them on social media, deactivating the account makes it so people don't find them, correct?
Correct.
So for example, Instagram. Jennifer Crumbley had an Instagram account and you testified about that to the jury, correct?
There's a two-factor authentication text message that was found, yes, with Instagram. Is that what you're referring to?
I'm not referring to the two-factor authentication, but you testified that Jennifer Crumbley had an Instagram account. Well, we can agree, she had an
Yeah, she
Instagram
did.
account.
There were posts that were admitted the other day, I believe, right?
Right, and in that, on Instagram, the whole point of Instagram is to post photos or videos, correct?
Correct.
And we can see the Instagram account that Jennifer Crumbley had with videos and pictures she had posted over time.
Correct.
And when a person turns off or deactivates their Instagram account, other people in the world don't have the ability to see those photos any longer, correct?
That's correct.
Other people in the world don't have the ability to send messages through Instagram to the person that's deactivated their account.
Correct.
So as a computer expert, if a person is trying to avoid having people see them or find them or see posts of theirs, even old posts, deactivating the account will accomplish that task.
Correct.
on that Instagram account, you are able to tell from the data that you received other accounts that Jennifer Crumbley followed.
Correct.
So meaning that from her account, Jennifer Crumbley had certain people she was linked up with where she could see what they posted on their accounts, correct?
Correct.
And on the flip side, people she was friends with on Instagram or connected to could see what she posted.
That's correct.
And we know that Jennifer's son had an Instagram account, e.crumbley, correct?
Correct.
And we can tell that Jennifer's account was connected with her son's in a way that she could see what he posted on that account.
Correct.
And we can presume he could see what his mother posted.
Correct.
When you are looking through the Instagram records, you are not able to tell which posts Jennifer did in fact see or not see, correct?
Correct.
So if the shooter posted something and Jennifer Crumbley had not checked Instagram, it's possible she would not have seen it even though he posted it.
Possible.
If he posted it and she looked at Instagram and looked at his account, looked at his profile, is that what it's called? She would certainly see anything he posted.
Looked at his account, you're saying, I'm sorry?
Yes.
Correct.
But in terms of all of the data you have, you don't have any way to determine which Instagram pictures she did or did not see.
Correct.
Now, if she made a comment on a picture, you would know she obviously saw it because you couldn't comment unless you had seen the picture to put the comment on there, correct?
That's correct.
And on the Instagram photos, there are not comments from Jennifer Crumbley to her son about the posts, correct?
On all the photos or a particular one?
I suppose the ones that we've admitted as exhibits in this case, the photograph of the gun, for example.
Correct.
And there's no doubt the shooter liked guns.
Correct.
And there's no doubt Jennifer posted photos of the gun.
Correct.
And videos.
Correct.
And even with what she posted, we can't tell if the shooter could see her posts.
Possibly, correct.
He may have seen them, he may not have seen them.
That's correct.
In terms of people communicating, we know that people can communicate obviously by telephone, voice phone calls. I don't take many these days because I hate them, but in the old days, we could talk on the phone from one person to another, correct?
Correct.
And there's the ability, obviously, to text. People can send messages from one person to another.
Correct.
And in terms of people's habits, some people may delete texts when they get them. Correct?
Correct.
Some people may keep every text they've ever had.
That's correct.
Some phones will delete texts after a certain period of time.
Not unless the user tells it to, no.
If someone gets a new phone, there are occasions where the old text from the old phone may not come up on the new phone.
I can't say for certain, I don't know. I haven't tested something like that yet, I don't know.
We can agree that everyone's personal habits in terms of how many texts they keep on their phone or don't are individual to each person.
Correct.
So when you're testifying and telling the jury about posts that you can tell or texts that you can tell are deleted or not deleted, you have never sat down and talked to Jennifer Crumbley about her habits with deleting posts or pictures or texts, correct?
That's correct.
The best you can do is look at what's deleted, what's not deleted, and tell this jury your findings.
Correct.
I want to go to March 9th of 2021. You testified pretty extensively about that date. Do you recall the materials from that date? And if not, I can certainly.
Yeah, if you have copies of it, I would prefer that. Yes, please.
Okay. So on that date, I'll approach with copies in just a moment. I just need to pull it up on my computer. I'm going to go to exhibit number 78. Okay. So, Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Sure, I can. He has them on his screen.
You said you wanted hard copy.
Either way, it doesn't matter.
Okay, oh, okay.
Are you okay with the
That's
screen? Or do you want?
I'll have that, please.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. So March 9th is one of the dates that you talked about.
Correct.
And the text messages that were introduced make it clear that James and Jennifer Crumbley made plans that day to go out to the barn, correct?
Correct.
And you have photos confirming that they were in fact at the barn, photos of horses they took.
Correct.
Okay, the jury has seen that the data shows the times these photographs were taken, so we know they're taken on March 9th.
Correct.
Okay, you've brought in GPS locations to prove they were there on that date.
Correct.
Okay, and it's on that date that Ethan Crumbley, the shooter, is sending his parents some texts that were admitted through Exhibit 82. Do you recall those texts?
I do, yes.
Okay. Now, in these texts, starting at, I'm going to put it up on the screen. This has been admitted as Exhibit 82. At 3:17, we can see that the shooter asks his mom, "Where are you?"
Correct.
And I'm sorry, I have that one in my hand. Do you want me to trade with you?
I should be fine with this.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think counsel misspoke.
I'm sorry, Jennifer, I'm so sorry. Jennifer Crumbley asked the shooter, "Are you home now?" At 3:17.
So where are you? Yes. Is that what
I'm
you're-
sorry, where are you?
Yes.
Okay. And the shooter responded, it looks like 4 hours later, saying, "Can you get home now?" And then proceeded to send some other texts about, "There is someone else in the house, I think," and it goes on from there, correct?
Correct.
Now, in between the time of 3:17 and 7:50, okay, we can agree there's a couple hours of a gap.
That's correct.
You don't know if Jennifer Crumbley and the shooter had phone conversations or discussions over those couple of hours,
If we look at the call logs on their phones, we could possibly find that out.
okay? If we looked at the call logs and the phone calls were to and from cell phones, we would be able to tell that, correct?
Yes.
Okay, but if, let's say Jennifer Crumbley called from her office phone, it would not show up the same as if she called from her own cell phone.
Well, the number would be different, correct?
Okay, and when you and law enforcement went through looking for phone calls, you provided over several call records, but not call records for example, Jennifer Crumbley's office with Ethan Crumbley.
There were none entered as exhibits. I can't say for certain right now with all the information I looked at, if there were any, off the top of my head.
You don't know if there were any?
Right now, I don't know.
Okay. And you also don't know that day, on the 8th, you know that they're planning to be at the barn. James and Jennifer make plans to go to the barn that
Correct.
day after work.
Correct.
Okay? Between the time they make these plans and the time the shooter texts, can you get home now? You don't know if Jennifer Crumbley or James Crumbley has physically been with the shooter.
Right, no, I do not. From that chat thread right there, I do not know that.
You don't know the discussions on that day that may have taken place in between the shooter and his parents.
Right, from this, I can't tell you that. Is that what you're saying? I don't understand.
Right.
Correct.
Right. The best you can do is piece together bits of information, but we can agree there's gaps of time where you don't know definitively what happened.
Correct. Right now, yes.
We can agree there are any number of things that could have happened between 3:17 and 7:50 there would not be evidence to show you what exactly happened, correct?
If there is none there, you mean? Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Correct.
And the only people who would know if they can even remember the day years ago would be the people who were present. So Mrs. Crumbley and the shooter, correct?
Correct.
They would be the only people who truly know what they spoke about or didn't speak about on that day.
Correct.
So when you see these texts, and I understand you find them alarming, I imagine that the texts, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that you find alarming are the texts about there is someone in the house, I think, someone walked into the bathroom and flushed the toilet and left the light on. I thought it was you, but when I came in, no one was home. There is no one in the house, though. Those are some of the texts that you found to be problematic, correct?
In the fact that there's no response in between any of those, yes.
Okay. We can agree there's no response, but you don't know if, okay, we can agree there's no response by text between Mrs. Crumbley and the shooter, correct?
Correct.
But you also have no way to tell when you see text messages like this, at what time Mrs. Crumbley read those texts.
Correct. You'll be able to tell that it was read, but yes, not what time.
Okay, so for example, when the shooter texts, "Can you get home now?" And then there's someone in the house, I think, a few seconds later, and then about 30 seconds after that, another text. You have no idea if Jennifer Crumbley checked her phone to see the first text message, checked and saw the second. You don't know which ones she saw or when, correct?
I don't know the time they were read, no.
All you know is that you don't see any response to them.
They're correct, there's no response.
So there's a number of possible things that could have happened in between these texts.
From 7:50 to the end of the last text,
Yeah,
she could have texted back, you mean, or called?
she could have, well, she didn't text back, we agree with that,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
Okay, when I say there's a number of things that could have happened, I mean, she could have read the text and thought this is garbage or he's joking and just set the phone down, correct?
She could have.
Okay, she could have not seen the texts because she was busy doing something.
Correct.
She could have been, we know she's at the horse ranch. Are you aware of how strong Jennifer Crumbley's cell signal is out at the barn where the horses are kept?
I have no idea about that, no, I do not.
Okay, if her cell signal doesn't work out where the barn is, it's possible these texts are not getting to her until she gets to a place where data uploads into the phone, correct?
That's correct.
So while we see these texts being sent, we cannot conclude that Jennifer Crumbley is reading these as they are coming to her. Fair to say?
I mean, that's the time that they were sent, the 7:50 and 14 seconds, and then 17 seconds and 39 seconds. That's when they were actually sent, and they were received on the other end. That's marked at that time. Otherwise, it would have come in at a later time.
Okay, but my point is, you don't know when she saw them, when Mrs. Crumbley actually read them.
No, but they would have been on the phone at that time.
If the phone had a signal and was able to get text, they'd be on the phone at that time, correct?
It would have been at a later time, at the time that they came in.
Okay, but if the signal wasn't working, she might not have been able to see those texts until she got to a point where the signal came in.
Correct.
Okay, there's times where you're in an area, people can be in an area with their cell phone and the signal is bad and texts are coming into them, but their phone shows nothing. That's a possibility, correct?
Correct.
And then when the person gets to a spot with better cell phone signal, all of a sudden, all the texts they missed over whatever period of time the phone wasn't working will flood into the phone, correct?
That's correct.
And just because they come into the phone at that time, they were still sent possibly hours before.
Without testing, I can't say for certain.
You don't know.
I can't say for certain without testing, correct.
Okay, so the text messages that were sent about someone being in the house, someone walking into the bathroom, you don't know any of the responses that, or even the thoughts Jennifer Crumbley had when she did in fact read those messages.
I don't know if she would have called back if that was alarming to her. Is that what you're saying, or?
I guess what I'm saying is, so these messages are coming in, and even when she does see them, let's say if she sees them as they're coming in, you don't know what she's thinking about these.
I don't know what she's thinking, no.
Okay, and you also don't know, and obviously we've already talked about it, this has already been asked, but you obviously don't know when she's seen each message. There's no documentation like she saw this one at 8 o'clock, this one at 8:05, anything like that.
Those are the times that they came into the phone, yes.
Okay. The next message we see is a text message on the following day sent to Ethan by Jennifer Crumbley that says, "Where is your dad?" Correct?
Can you just scroll down a little bit?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure. I see.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry.
You know, I feel like maybe I should give the jury a break. You're not close, right?
I'm not even close.
I think the witness could probably use it as well.
Okay.